Hey y'all, I'm Shauna. Welcome in or welcome back. We are on week 2 of No by January, or we're about to finish week 2. So let me know how it's been going for you so far. Is it getting easier? Have you had some challenges? Have you had some successes? Let me know in the comments. Last week, we talked all about pinpointing your cues and triggers. This week, we're going to be talking about a strategy you can use to help you find your best behaviors, your golden behaviors, really those things that will have the highest impact in changing your shopping habits. We're going to talk about this method, like how to do it, and then I have an example. This exercise is best done, in my opinion, with like a pen and paper. So I will take it down and I'll walk you through an example. The strategy we're going to use today is about finding your golden behaviors, those ones that'll have the highest impact, kind of like the Pareto principle. You'll do like a few things that will give you 80% of the reward. Before we can go in and select or brainstorm about our key habits, the author of Tiny Habits, BJ Fogg, says that there are 2 components to keep in mind for this process. That is motivation and degree of difficulty. He says that these 2 things work together and they'll need to work together in order to find that sweet spot. So if you have a habit that is very difficult to do, you will need super high motivation in order to do it. On the flip side, if you have a behavior that is very easy to do, then you need to have very low motivation in order to complete the habit. So now let's walk through the exercise, and there are 3 big steps in order to complete the task. So step 1 is to define your goal. Changing my shopping habits or successfully completing a no-buy, those are goals, but they need a little extra impact added to them. You need that why added to it so you can come up with a realm or range of behaviors that will be more specific. So here's an example. Someone who wants to change their habits or go on a no-buy in order to pay down debt is going to probably use different principles than somebody who wants to do these things to pursue contentment. So here's an example. I want to change my shopping habits so I can start saving more money and pay down my debt as fast as I can and be debt-free. So in this example, there's a few things at play. 1, they want to change their habits. That's their top goal. But number 2, they want to start saving money. So they want to reduce their expenses in order to save more money, to have bigger debt payments, to then number 4, pay down their debt as fast as possible. So you have a clear idea about what they want to do, why they want to do it. This is going to help us come up with a list of potential solutions. So step number 2 is to brainstorm. You're going to write down or ask yourself this main question and write down anything that comes to mind. If you could wave a magic wand and get yourself to do anything, behaviors that you want to stop, you want to start, one-time behaviors, like anything, what would they be? I encourage you to, on a lined piece of paper, write down your goal and then beneath it, write down this question. You can ask follow-up questions while you're writing if you're getting stuck. You can ask yourself about what's a one-time behavior that I would like to do, or what's a habit I would like to stop. That will help prompt you in your writing process. So you're going to start brainstorming. And I have a big list here. And the thing is there's even more that I would be able to brainstorm if I sat down with 30, 40 minutes and, really thought about this. A couple examples would include to call my credit card company to lower my interest rate. I could take extra shifts at work. I could try cash stuffing. I could create a budget with my family, do a financial audit. I could reduce my takeout expenses. I could remove subscriptions. There's lots of options. So step 3 is to find your high impact behaviors. So you want to find the behaviors that are going to have the greatest effect. What on this list, if I could do one thing that will have the biggest impact, what would it be? So that's a place to start. And you're going to take your list and you're going to ask 3 more questions. So the first question is, how effective is this behavior in helping me to achieve my goal? let's take something like cutting back my Instagram usage. Will this help me? Probably. I'll probably be less inclined to buy stuff or, do compare and despair and, feeling bad and then trying to go to stuff to fix myself. So this one, is eligible. Number 2 is, can I get myself to do this / do I want to do this? Yeah, I can cut back on my Instagram usage. I think that's feasible. And then how feasible and practical is this? Fairly easy. I could set up a timer on my phone. So there we go. And then number 4 is to consider the impact of this. So would this help? Yes. Sure, this would be a genuinely good thing to try. However, when we're looking at the place to start, I probably wouldn't start here. I want to start with the thing that's going to have the biggest impact, and something like negotiating a lower interest rate is going to have a, larger, more immediate impact. Like, you are going to actually save money on interest if you're able to negotiate that. Whereas cutting back on Instagram usage will probably help you save money by not buying stuff, but it's not the same as the first example. So when you're making your list, I would suggest ranking each of your behaviors on those 3 scales. So you could, in order to develop some kind of rating system, you could rank, let's say you have 10 items, you can rank them 1 through 10. Or if you have 4 questions, you could give each question a 10-point value, rank each one of your items by 10 points. The highest handful wins. You do need some kind of rating system. Your golden behaviors are going to be the things that meet this question criteria. And you might have, let's say you have 10 items on your list. It's perfectly okay, if not ideal, to have more than one. If 5 of your 10 items meet this, amazing. You have 5 things you can do, and probably start with the easiest thing to do. So if I think back or I look at my list of suggestions that I've made, doing a financial audit is probably going to have a pretty big impact. But if you're feeling judgmental or shameful about your finances, the way you've been spending, that's not going to be all that easy to do, especially right away. So what's the easiest step you can take? Maybe on this list, the easiest thing you could do is, in fact, cutting back on your Instagram or setting a timer for your Instagram usage. And then that's going to inspire you. Maybe the next thing you do is call your credit card company. That's a perfectly acceptable plan of action. This activity is absolutely excellent to do at the start of a habit change, so you can come up with different solutions and you're not necessarily assuming the right thing to do. Oftentimes, we are just guessing at what we should do, and we don't actually come up with the strategic plan where we evaluate all of our options, or at least all of the ones that we can think of at this time. So when you're thinking about, okay, how can I go about changing my shopping habits? I've said this before, but it's worth saying again. We assume that the no-buy or having a no-buy year is the right thing to do or the best thing to do. That might very well be the case. If you do an activity like this, you might be able to find a few things you could do, and then maybe, item number 5 of 7 or 7 of 7 on your golden behaviors is the no-buy. I can tell you right now, based on these questions and based on this activity, going on a no-buy as the first strategy would never have been something that would have made it onto my list. Maybe eventually, but definitely not as action items like 1, 2, or 3. Going on a 30-day no-buy, on the other hand, is something that I could have very well done, back in 2020. That would have been something that was feasible for me. So what would be the best situations to apply this to? I would say that it is best for larger goals or compound goals, things that are going to take multiple steps or multiple solutions to implement or to see it through. And as well, something where you could implement multiple solutions. Paying down debt as an example, you could be doing 10 things at once or using 10 strategies at the same time or in a really small window, and work towards that. Or other solutions, you might only be able to feasibly come up with one solution. Coming up with one solution isn't entirely the problem. If your golden behavior strategy comes up with one thing only, that isn't indicative of a problem, but I think it works best with larger goals. You know yourself best, you know how you work, you know your life, and you know what areas of your shopping life need work. And I think you should trust yourself to apply this where you feel necessary. If you want to apply it everywhere at first, do it. It's not going to harm you at all. Like, it would not be a bad thing to spend too much time, considering solutions. And you'll probably and as you go through, you'll probably get more effective, and maybe you won't need to, do the whole paper grid thing, and you'll be able to kind of get to that reflection relatively quick. I think another great utilization of this strategy would be for hobbies. I've talked a lot about hobbies on this channel, and I've heard from a lot of you over the last probably 2 months about your desire to find hobbies for yourself. You can use this exact strategy to find a hobby that'd be right for you. You can list, maybe you list 20 hobbies. You can go through and you can say, all right, could I feasibly, see myself doing this every day? Would I be motivated to do this thing? Do I enjoy this thing? Maybe for hobbies, you add like an enjoyment scale, and you can probably come up with a few options for you to try out. I think that would be so fun. All right, folks, action time. We're time to see this in action. So I have a piece of paper, I have my goal at the top, and then I have a space for ideas. I'm going to show you 2 ways to get to the solution portion. So the chart is already here because the ideas are here, or maybe not necessarily the chart, but the table. And then I'll show you the actual chart, or a chart version that we will do with a piece of just like regular paper. We're going to go with the same goal that we talked about in the video. So my goal is to change my shopping habits so I can save more money and pay down my debt faster. This is going to be like the pretend scenario that we're working with. So I'm going to brainstorm some ideas. I'm going to set a timer for about 2 minutes to write down my ideas. And we're going to just like speed through that really quick, and then we'll come back. All right, we have our list of suggestions. Now, all of these ideas are ways to either save more money or earn more money. And there's more activities that we could add, like I've mentioned in different videos, but this is like a good starting point, right? Like, one that I was actually thinking of would be to work from home to decrease your transportation costs. So whether you're driving or like taking transit or both, you're going to save money on gas at the very least, or the overt transportation costs. So if I worked from home instead of, I actually did this calculation when I was looking for a job, I would save a minimum of $400 a month from taking a work from home job versus an in-person job. This, of course, is not available for every job, but for many it is. Financial audit, make a budget with your family, do a social media audit, decrease screen time, decrease takeout, remove subscriptions, cash stuffing. One thing, or some things you could also add on your list, would be things that you have already noticed if you've done a like habit tracking or trigger tracking exercise. So one that I added on here in our pretend scenario is that the person realized that they scroll on their couch at night. So if you can find a way to do this, you can stop making purchases. You could add in like very specific categories or ideas for categories you overspend on. So if you're a makeup lover or a fashion lover, and those are your areas of concern, we can get more detailed ideas for those. Finding ways to maybe appreciate what you have more, or maybe you have ideas for like specific challenges that you can do. Perfect here. Now we're going to create 3 columns. I don't have a ruler, so we're just these are not even. Okay, so we're going to put Q1, Q2, Q3. And everything on this list is going to get a rating from 1 to 10. I much prefer a 10-point scale than a 5-point scale. It's easier to read automatically. So question number 1 is about effectiveness. So we could even just do, I don't know, put like an E here for effective. So we're going to rate these on effective. Does this idea actually have a good chance of helping me achieve my goal? So consolidating debt, yes, I feel like that's probably at least an 8. So we're going to go with a 9. Ask for interest rate decrease, another very effective one. Ask for a raise. If I did get a raise, also effective. I'm going to give this one an 8. Pick up extra hours at work, also effective. I'm going to give this one a higher than a raise, only because depending on like your industry, if you were to get a raise, some people it could be like 10 cents. Some people it could be like $20,000, you know, start a side hustle. I'm going to give this one like a 7. Side hustles, if I were to establish one, would be effective, but it's going to take some time to like actually set this up. Asked to work from home to decrease transit costs. We're going to give this guy, I feel like an 8, super effective. Okay, do a financial audit. I'm going to give this a 7. Financial audits can be a really big wake-up call to helping you actually change things, but whether you absorb information, no, we're going to give this, hold on. We're going to give this a 6 because yes, you can learn from this, like you can learn from your audit, but doesn't mean you'll implement it. And also in terms of effectiveness, consolidating debt or asking for like an interest rate or all these things are like, if this comes through, you will absolutely achieve money. This one is like kind of more roundabout. Make a budget with your family. I feel like if you can stick to that. 8. A social media audit. I would give this like a low effectiveness as well. Same with like reducing screen time. Actually, no. Okay, we'll give social media audit a 6, reducing screen time. We're going to give that a 7. Question number 2 is ability. No, it's motivation. And question 3 is ability. So motivation, can I actually get myself to do this? How motivated am I to do this? And like, if this thing requires multiple iterations, like you have to do this regularly, can you do this regularly? So I'm just going to do a couple here and then I'll speed through the rest. So consolidating debt, that's like a one-time phone call. Might be nervous about that, so we can give that an 8. Asking for a decreased interest rate, another easy one-time event. And for me, let's say I can do that. It just feels easier, so let's say a 9. Asking for a raise, let's say I'm really nervous about that, so I'm going to give that a 6. Okay, my camera cut out. Battery died. So I don't know how much you saw there, but we have our motivation here. So question 3 is ability. How practical or feasible is this thing to do in real life? I'm going to go through a couple. Let's go work from home. I was very excited about this. So I think this would be feasible. I think my boss would actually say yes. So I'm going to give that a 9. We don't have a perfect degree of certainty here. Start a side hustle. Is this feasible? I'm going to give it a 6 because I don't know what my side hustle would be in this scenario. Pick up hours at work. I don't think my boss would give me more than a couple of hours, extra hours. So we'll give this a 6. Ask for a raise. I don't think my boss is going to give this to me at all. My boss told me that they're not going to. So I feel like that's going to be a 4. All right, make a budget with a family. Maybe I'm like nervous about making a budget. Is it feasible? Like, could I actually bring myself to do this? I think eventually. So we'll say that. Reducing social media and screen time. we'll say that's very feasible. I think with this one too, we could also ask, like, is this realistic for your life? So maybe the hobbies gets a higher. We'll give that guy 7. I'm going to fill in the rest and I'll be back. All right, so a couple of notable standouts. Cash stuffing. I put a 5 because this, going to the bank every week, is going to be like a huge obstacle. I already know it. If I were to do it in real life, not even a pretend scenario. So that's going to be low. We're now going to look for anything that has a high rating. So our golden behaviors are going to be anything that across these 3, we can say either like a 7 or an 8 and above in all of the categories. And we can give them a star. So this one here. Yep. Or maybe we'll do it here. This one here. This one here. I think this one is like high enough. Got a 7, but 8 averaging. These 2 are rated fairly high. This one is a 6. This one is higher, so we'll go here, here, here. As you're going through, you might be able to like compare like one thing to another. So as I was looking at these and I saw like the social media audit, this was a 6. But then when I'm like looking at finding new hobbies, this one is less effective than finding new hobbies. I think this is like a pretty ineffective one, kind of generally speaking. And I feel like finding a new hobby is more effective. But I personally, when looking at this, I feel like these ones are way higher. And they're just overall easier to do. So I'm going to do that. So there's a lot of really good habits on here that we could go for. And the one you want to start with is the easiest one to implement. Because what we want to do is we want to give ourselves motivation to go on to the next step. So we're not necessarily going to like the most effective thing first. We're going for like, what's the easiest thing I can do, get a little win to propel me forward onto the next step. Often these are called Keystone Habits, and our Keystone Habits are very important because if we choose the right ones, they could have colossal impact, even if they are small. So out of this list, what would be the easiest thing for me to do? I mean, I'm most excited about this one. So social media audit, I'm saying as this one would be like step number 1, because that's super easy. I can go through like my socials and all of that, and I'm fairly motivated to do it. So I'm going to just go in and we'll put step number 1 as let's do a social media audit. And then maybe I'll pick my top 3. I'll then, from here, I'm going to do the work from home. And then I'm going to do the interest rate. For me, on this list, the work from home thing is like super exciting. So the motivation is super high and it gets it. Should be my second one. Interest rate is like a fairly easy, well, not fairly easy. It's an easy thing to do because you're just making a call, but then there's also, it could be like nerves involved in making the call. And if, there's still the chance that you don't get your interest rate reduced. So this would be my first 3. And then once I do these 3, I can come back to my list and we keep going. And then we can add more at a time. So how to do this as a graph. You're going to do a guy like this. And then at the top, we're going to put high impact. Okay, so here's your chart. And you are now going to plot your activities on this chart. I think visual people are going to thrive way more with this. So to take my examples, consolidating debt. You don't have to rate it, and it's mostly, is it high impact or low impact? So consolidating debt is high impact. Can I get myself to do it? Yes, I can. It goes over here. And we're just going to put this as CD. The next thing to do is ask for interest rate decrease. High or low? High. Can I get myself to do this? Yes. We're going to put increase interest rate. Oh, more like decrease. Decrease interest rate. Okay, so next up would be something like, we'll take cash stuffing. Is it a high impact behavior or a low impact behavior? Well, I think it would be high, not as high as these two, but fairly high. Can I get myself to do it? Yes, I can. Or no. I think it's more like here. So we're going to put this as cash stuffing. So I think you can tell by this type of activity is that this is a spectrum, right? Like these, where you place stuff in these quadrants, it's eventually rating them, and you don't have to rate them like this. This is way more visual, and you're kind of comparing things against each other as they appear. So this, I think, is going to do well visually. The only negative kind of downside about this is that when I put this here, it's just more difficult to move it. So I'm going to plot all of these on here, all the ones that we already have. All right, so here's the chart. With this activity, it's very clear what my high impact behaviors are that I should start. Consolidate debt, decrease interest rate, work from home, budget, financial audit, hobbies, and stop the stop scrolling one that we found from our trigger list. The next ones I'd probably go to would be ones that I could see myself doing but aren't as impactful. A social media audit, side hustle. And then these ones would be ones either I would ignore, not do, or potentially later. These behaviors up here are the ones that we would start off with, and I would pick out of these ones the easiest ones to go through. That still applies, and we could still do our 1, 2, 3. I still think going for a social media audit would probably be the best thing to start with because it is the easiest and I'm most motivated to do it. And we could start that as number 1. I would keep both of these things because after you've done a couple of these things in, let's say, 2 weeks, you might have done a social media audit. You might have asked your boss to work from home, and then maybe next weekend or later in the week, you call your company for a lower interest rate. You might have built enough momentum to be like, you know what? Decreasing that takeout is actually not so hard to me anymore. I'm super motivated, and that one shifts from a high impact but not so feasible to high impact and yes, so feasible. And you can revisit this at any time.